a little rundown of what's going to be going on in the match for this second match of the day of Waffles versus End of Life.
Alright guys, welcome back to Alliance Tournament 15 action. I am Elise Randolph, joined by moderator. We've got another match for you today, the second match of the day, or I guess third match of the day, depending on how you want to look at it. Waffles in red in a Astarte, Navy Brutix, Navy Harbinger, Hyena, Vexer, twin Daredevil comp with an Oneros as logistics. Moderator, take me through the blue team, End of Life.
Yeah, so End of Life, we're going for a pair of Dominixes and Oneros, a Myrmidon as their link ship, a pair of Ishtars, some of the inexpensive Vexers, and a pair of Punishers.
Alright, so this is interesting. This is going to be the second time we've seen a drone comp of the day. Do you think Waffles have what it takes to break through these drones, though?
Yeah, it's one of the things that remains to be seen, exactly how this archetype, being the core of Alliance Tournament 14 comps that we've seen in the past, that Waffles is bringing, fares up against the new blood. Waffles wants to make sure that they're able to not get caught by those Dominixes who will likely be fielding heavy newts that could shut down any sort of active hardeners or guns, both the Harbingers and the Navy Brutix being rather cap-hungry on their weapons platforms and propulsion modules.
Yeah, just guys, look at the End of Life control bar. That bar is massive. That represents the amount of control that a team has, or rather, the potential amount of control, and it looks like the Dominixes are all newt fit. That's what we can infer from that massive control bar. The Myrmidons and Ishtars and Vexers probably have some mid slots for tracking disruption or damps of some sort. Scripts are not allowed in the Alliance Tournament, so probably tracking disruption, otherwise those damps are not going to do too much. Crucially, End of Life do not have any form of really ranged tackle. They've got these two Punishers that they're going to need to keep alive the entire match, because it would be possible for the Waffles team to kite these drones a little bit, unless these Punishers, can get tackle. We saw Tuskers earlier today win a match similarly by using and utilizing a Hyena, which has like bonus target painters and webs, which is perfect for Tech 2 drone application. But End of Life really going to have to need these Punishers to pilot really well. And if you look at the warp-in ranges, they came in at a bit of a really good angle for End of Life. They should be able to rush straight onto the Waffles side. But Waffles, crucially, do have two Daredevils as counter tackle and a Hyena. So they have a lot of control, defensive control as well.
Yeah, Waffles choosing to go for the discounted Daredevils, given that this Alliance tournament is hosted by the Sancha, I believe. The Daredevils, they do have the point reduction bonus being 2 points instead of 4 points that a normal pirate faction frigate would be. So End of Life choosing to go for just the Tech 1 frigate, the Punisher. Punisher being a bit heavier with the armor resist bonus it has and more low slots to fill up the tank, as opposed to the Daredevils, which are much faster but much lighter and easier to punch through.
Yeah. With 2-point Daredevils, trust me guys, you're going to see a lot of Daredevils. That 90% web is beautiful, and the match is starting here in about 10 seconds. Very exciting. What do you think we're going to see the Waffles team do? Like, they just have to pull range and shoot stuff, right?
Yeah, I'd like to see Waffles punch through the End of Life Oneros pretty quickly, or through some of their core. End of Life, being an armored drone comp, aren't going to have the repair bots. They're going to be going full offensive, so they won't be able to keep the Oneros up as well as Waffles will.
Alrighty, and we do see some tracking disruptors going on right now. End of Life has decided to tracking disruptor a Vexer, which is probably not the right idea, but we can also see Wood Vulcan is being tracking disrupted in its Harbinger. As is basically all of the battlecruiser hulls on the Waffles side, but that's not stopping them at all. Waffles are just pounding through this Punisher full and hard and deep, and it is about to go down.
Yeah, really good primary for Waffles off the bat, getting rid of that End of Life screen and tackle. But as we say that, End of Life are now getting damage on top of the Oneros, as their Punisher of Outback is taking an appreciable amount of damage, being fully hard tackled and webbed down by these 90% webs that the Daredevil will bring.
Around the Oneros, however, is a swarm of armor maintenance spots, guys. If you can't see it on stream, you can see the effects on stream, actually. So yeah, a swarm of armor maintenance spots, and we'll see if End of Life will actually deal with these armor maintenance spots at all. It looks like the Oneros is tanking just fine, though it is crucially neuted by these Dominixes. The Oneros got a little bit rushed on because, you know, it has to stay near its team. But let's see if these newts can apply anything here.
Yeah, so these Dominixes are getting on top of the Oneros core. One thing I'd really want to see is get one of your battleships on top of the Oneros at 0. Use the smart bombs that you have. Clear off all the rep drones. It looks like Waffles are switching off to a Vexor at this point, realizing that they're not able to break the Punisher of Outback at the moment.
Yeah, these armor maintenance bots are still staying alive, and as you mentioned, the Punisher of Outback Ozran could not get broken through. Crucially, Waffles are losing their Oneros right now. The newts, the knots, and all of the drones are on it right now. It cannot speed tank at all. Waffles about to lose their logistics, and they're not going to have traded anything for it besides a Punisher.
Yeah, and with their ships being tracking disrupted, they're just being able to apply that much less of damage, having to go for longer range ammo to apply to some of the Ishtars and the Vexors, which are not taking much damage. Waffles choosing to now go for Scipio, the Oneros of End of Life, who is now tackled, but a bit late in the match. They're trading out a Navy Harbinger, which is the new primary, and the Hyena of your Savior has been webbed as well.
This is a Waffle disaster. Oh no, End of Life is completely in the driver's seat of this match. They are losing their Oneros really quickly. As you mentioned before, perhaps this was the primary that Waffles should have gone for first. Waffles maybe are about to stabilize in this match by making this logistics trade, and whew, hearts go out to those Waffle pilots. I'm sure they're very excited to be back in this match as it swings back into a more even favor, but they have 2 of their ships tackled. A Hyena is tackled and scrammed by this Punisher, and a Harbinger Navy issue is tackled, neuted, and going down hard.
Yeah, that Harbinger Navy issue is dropping pretty hard now. It looks like the nude effects has finally shut off some of the hardeners that he might be running. The Oneros, notably for Scipio, on End of Life dropped much quicker than Tiana Stark did in the Waffles. Again, that's a power of these medium rep drones that the Navy Harbingers, the Navy Brutixes, and the Start will be bringing to bear. End of Life cores being a bit more squishy than the Waffle cores, as this Vexor is now down into about half armor on End of Life.
Yeah, these Waffles really have to get rid of these tracking disruptors so their battlecruiser hulls can apply some sort of damage. End of Life is doing a really good job spreading the field right now, so even though Alfred is tackled and probably going to go down here in the next couple of seconds, the next primaries for Waffles are very far from Alfred, and they're going to be trading, Waffles rather, are trading a Vexor for a Navy Brutix, which is just now entering armor. Not a great trade at all. At this rate, Waffles are going to be losing here to a Dominix team. Probably not something they anticipated going into this match.
Yeah, Waffles at this point having less overall control bar, having less overall attack bar and defense bar. End of Life are just significantly ahead, having knocked out one of the Navy Harbingers, the Brutix of Sissa now dropping. End of Life in a commanding position, 20 points up, and that Vexor is surviving incredibly long.
Yeah, most definitely. And, you know, as more Waffle ships die, these tracking disruptors just stack on their remaining ships. They are unable to apply almost any of their damage right now. You can see their attack bar is just barely filled up. I guess, you know, Waffles tactically have an Ishtar and a Vexor tackled. The second Vexor about to go down right now. But there's just a Navy Harbinger, a Navy Brutix, and an Astarte against 2 Dommies, 2 Ishtars, and a Myrmidon. This is going to be a lot of work that Waffles need to put in to swing this match into their favor.
Yeah, Waffles have 1 Astarte, which is a Navy Harbinger, a Navy Brutix, and half of a DPS core in that Vexor. Meanwhile, End of Life have 5 with the 2 Dominixes, the Myrmidon, and the Ishtar. The Ishtar being one of the ships I would have liked to have seen be primaried over a Vexor, doing significantly more damage, but without logistics not being on the field any longer for End of Life, dying rather quickly, not having any way to support those excellent resist it brings. These Daredevils for Waffles are doing work, doing everything they can claw. their team back into the match. It's locking down these ships one by one, allowing these battle cruisers to get on top of them and apply their damage.
Yeah, these Daredevils are doing basically keeping Waffles in this match right now. As you can see, the tracking disruptors, and there's literally no effects on these Daredevils at all. They give free reign, and Daredevils, even though they're only 2-point frigates, they still pump out a fair amount of damage. They're probably applying more damage than this poor Navy Harbinger. But finally, with the Ishtar and 2 Vexors down for end of life, Waffles have very few tracking disruptors on them right now. So we'll see if they're able to get any damage out here. Waffles have locked down Sombraid's Taboo in the last Ishtar here. Man, oh man, if they can get him down, maybe they have a hope with only 3 minutes to go.
I really like this choice of a primary from Waffles. We can see that the Daredevils are on top of him at 0. They'll be applying excellent damage. The Vexor is on top of him as well as the Navy Harbinger. They'll be getting on top using either multi-frequency or any sort of high damage ammo to completely break through the tank of that. And Waffles are trading out rather well right now, but it's too little too late. As this Ishtar is dropping, Moab Achase into the start is about to fall, and End of Life still has a Dominix, and a Myrmidon. That's just too much tank and too much HP for Waffles to really break through with only a Vexor and a Harbinger, as well as those Daredevils for damage in the next 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, this is a massive upset for people watching at home. Like this was a great comp up by End of Life. These tracking disruptors forced these battlecruiser hulls Waffles to come in close, and as they came in close, the Dominix hulls, which spread out pretty well for the End of Life side, just applied nukes and just wrecked them so hard. So Waffles had to make a choice: come in close and kill stuff, or stay out far and slowly die. Unfortunately, both options are a losing option for them. I can't say they did anything really horribly wrong besides getting their own arrows tackled pretty quickly.
I would have liked to have seen either Waffles play a bit defensively and use those Daredevils to prevent the incoming Punishers to get on top of that Oniros, or I would have liked to have seen Waffles use that Hyena, use those Daredevils, get on top of the Oniros, take the initiative, and try to gain a tempo advantage that way. Unfortunately, they did get the Punisher early on, but they weren't able to convert that into any sort of a meaningful lead off the beginning. And once they had lost the tempo, End of Life really just kept on the pressure, and they've been keeping it on this entire time, right up until the point that Wood Vulcan, is Navy's Harbinger, is about to drop.
Yeah, really great showing by this End of Life team. As I was saying before, I don't think it's all Waffles flying poorly, more as End of Life flying really, really well. I'm sure Waffles, if they can do this match over again, I think they'd make a few changes that you mentioned. But you know what? All things considered, really, really great showing by End of Life here, with its great upset for the day. Waffles, 50 seconds to kill basically a Dominix and a Myrmidon with 2 Daredevils. And that is unfortunately not going to happen. Waffles lose their last Vexor. Devil's going down. They are not eliminated. They are going to the lower bracket. But man, this is going to be a hard trek for them. Having to play all those extra matches going to the final. My heart goes out to the poor Waffles. Not gonna be a lot of fun playing like 80 bajillion matches, and that's a technical fact. Waffles will have to play 80 bajillion matches. I learned that from Apophany. But
yeah,
10 seconds to go.
Unfortunately, Waffles, being a team that has had a bit of a history of losing early on in the tournament and then not being able to continue through it. However, we have seen teams such as PFR lose in the very beginning but make an excellent losers run. I'm sure the desk will have plenty to break down on that match, and Waffles run through the lower bracket. And we will send it off to the adorable Apophany and the rest of our excellent studio audience. say that has been a top tier target calling?
I would definitely say it's a unique tier target calling.
Should be fine.
Nope.
I love EVE Online!
Hey guys, welcome back after that match between Waffles and End of Life. Waffles there, I think possibly tunnel visioning onto those Punishers with TD'd long-range battle cruisers. Possibly not the best target choice, as we saw them 3 minutes into the match, then switching to the Aneros, dying almost immediately, and then going into that really tight, intense DPS race, which was actually really fun to watch. You kind of got to feel, though, that if they'd gone for that Aneros from the start, maybe the match would have been a different story. I mean, what do you guys think of the decision making that match? Was that Waffles' match to lose, or do you think it was just a really close fight that Waffles were beaten on?
I definitely think Waffles could have easily won that match, but their tactics at like maybe the first 2 minutes of the match was a bit off. I mean, they went against Punishers. I mean, the first Punisher did die relatively quickly, but they obviously tried to go for the second Punisher as well, but their tracking disrupted, battle cruisers, and obviously the Logi pre-reps on the Punisher. Punishers obviously get armor resist bonus, so it's going to be extra tanky. And then they realized, like, we're not going to break this Punisher. Going for the Aneros, but that was too little too late at that point. The End of Life already killed their Aneros and working on Navy battle cruisers at that point.
So, Suetonia, for those possibly younger EVE players in the audience, what do we mean when we say, you know, tracking disruptors on the BCs making shooting Punishers a bad idea? That's a lot of jargon. Break it down for us.
So the Punisher is a frigate, which is the smallest class of ship in EVE. The Punisher has a relatively low signature because it's an armor tank ship and it's a MAR. And the mid slots on the Ishtars and the Dominixes and the Myrmidons, End of Life fitted those with tracking disruptor modules, which disrupts the tracking on your turrets. The Navy BCs that Waffles do bring, they do have a tracking bonus, but what those tracking disruptors are doing is they're effectively taking away that tracking bonus. So a small ship like a Punisher, which has good resist, low sig, is very hard for them to kill effectively. And we saw as soon as they target swapped to the nearest, it died within 30 seconds, and it looked like they could maybe claw back the match, but it was too little too late, and they wasted, I think, over a minute and a half shooting that one Punisher that was just doing fine under a nearest reps because they just couldn't apply that battlecruiser DPS. They did have Daredevil webs in that comp, but the Daredevils were doing their job trying to tackle the big ships. So they didn't have it. They could have webbed that Punisher with a Daredevil web and then killed it quickly. But then that was also kind of what End of Life wanted them to do, is waste their time on those Punishers so that the Daredevils aren't tackling more key targets like the Myrmidon Lynx or the nearest. Those are more softer targets that they could have killed quicker and probably won and swung the match for them.
Yeah, so I mean, we've now seen the Tuskers bring a drone-based comp, and we've seen End of Life bring a drone-based comp. Two very different comps, though. I want to talk specifically about the top end here. We've had a double EOS from the Tuskers, 18 points each T2 tank brings links against the Dominix from End of Life. 19 points per ship, but you get that extra EHP from it being a battleship. You get far more fitting, far more utility. You can throw heavy smart bombs and newts on all those utility highs, though as I mentioned you do lose the links from being an EOS. What do you guys think about EOS versus Dominix if you're bringing a drone comp as your kind of your top end heavy? Do you think Dominix versus EOS, is it a decision? Is it maybe a little bit of both? What do you guys think about Dominix versus EOS?
I definitely think it's both, but Dominix's, what they bring to the table is utility. So you've got heavy newts, which are very important, and you've got smart bombs, which maybe in this meta is extremely important because there's going to be a lot of drone comps going to run around, and if your Neros is just going to be chased around by, like, you know, 5k a second Valkyries or something crazy like that by VNIs and Ishtars, what you can do is you can brawl your Aneros into your own Dominix and smart bomb their drones, which, you know, eventually they'll just run out of DPS and damage. But EOS's, they bring T2 resists and they bring links to the table as well. They also bring a little bit of utility, but they only have 4 mid slots. So there is a decision to make on how you're going to center your comp around Dominix's or EOS's.
Now, Suetonia, to swap to the other end of the scale, we saw frigate choice there from both teams, again, be different. We saw the Waffles bring double Daredevil in at 2 points, Pirate Frigates, 90% web bonus under the Serpentis point reduction. End of Life brought in 2 Punishers, again 2 points, much tankier than Daredevils, but obviously much slower, tankier, larger. What do you think about Daredevil versus Punisher? Again, in the sense of, is one an obvious choice over the other in all situations, or do you think it really depends on what comp you're bringing?
I think it depends on what comp you're bringing. Daredevil does bring a lot. The Daredevil gets a bonus to Stasis Webifiers, which means a Tech 2 web fitting onto that Daredevil is a 90% web, which is it's more than 4 times more powerful than a normal web because of how the percentages work. Like if you stacked 4 webs on someone, they would actually be going faster than with 1 Daredevil web on them. What the Daredevil really brings is a lot of damage on top of the utility of that huge web. It is a bit more limited though because the Daredevil, it doesn't have, even though it's a pirate frigate, it doesn't have the resist that the Punisher does, and it has a bigger signature radius as well. So even though it's faster, it brings a lot of damage to the table, 250 DPS even with Electrons and Void. Like 2 Daredevils, that's a bomber.
Yeah, so we now must move on to, in our next match, possibly we're anticipating this to be the most watched match of the day as it involves 2 of the largest, most beloved alliances, 2 of the most well-known alliances in the game. We've got Goon Swarm Federation making a triumphant turn to the Alliance tournament after a great run in the feeder rounds, headed up by Asher Elias. I believe he's currently the 31st best FC in the Imperium, something along those lines. Then, of course, Brave Collective headed up by Yukiko Kami, current CSM member. Now, Brave Collective got in off of the silent auction bidding over, I think it's over 100 bill in Plex or something ridiculous like that. They are by far the highest bidder in the silent auction, getting them this place in the tournament. However, Goonswarm coming in off of those feeder rounds, 4 games played, 3-1, as is required to get in if you don't win your first match, giving them a bit of extra experience in this meta. Do you guys have a particular favourite for this match, Brave versus Goons?
I'm going to go for Brave on this one. I think Brave, they do actually have some sort of AT pedigree. I mean, they did go last year and the year before that, so they do have some experience behind them. So I'm going to go with Brave on this one. They seem a bit more experienced and they seem to know what they're doing. So,
Sutonia?
I think I'm going to go with Brave, but I think it's worth mentioning Goonswarm are one of the few alliances that survived the feeder round loser bracket, and I think there's definite strength in there. Also, Goonswarm have been doing a lot of tournaments recently. They had 2 of the Anger games. So they also, not only do they have the experience of the feeder rounds, but they also have the Anger games experience, their own personal tournament that they run. So I think this is going to be a pretty decent match. I think Goonswarm might be able to win against Brave, and I think it'll be very interesting if they do. But I think I'm going to have to go with Brave because I've heard stories about their practice.
Let's find out how this match is going to go. Let's hand it over to the casters for match 3 of Alliance Tournament 15.